Welcome back, everybody, to part two. I am still a little under the weather, but hopefully I'm going to beat this back. I don't know. I've pulled the tubes out of the radio and did the checks on those, and they were good. So that's a good thing. I cleaned them up, put them up, got ready for this. I've talked to several people, and they've real encouraging about how hard this radio is. So we're gonna work on this. So my first game plan is to identify. I went down here and identified all the Bakelite block capacitors. Okay, number 24, number 28, number 31, 36, and 44. So I also went up here on the schematic and identified where they're located in the circuit, and also down here. Then I went cross-referenced the numbers, not only on the parts list, but actually what was in the radio, because reading through some of the documentation, you got to remember this radio went through 3 evolutions, and so did they improve it or did they change things or what? But some of the parts changed and some of the part numbers changed. Of course, they were all obsolete by the time this was finished, and so you had to go back with the universal number. So I gathered my data, and then I went onto a website, and I'll put the information up on the screen shortly. But I drew out each one, number 24, 28, 31, of the layout of what's inside each block capacitors. Of course, in order to do that, I had to go and physically locate the capacitors. So let's see if I can move this around a little bit. Okay, looking at the physical layout of the radio, there should be 3 of these filter blocks on the underside. Well, there's only 2. There's only 2. So this one back here, let's see if I can get it right. This one up here is number 44, and that's the one that's in around the rectifier tube. Also, there's 2 more up here, number 31 and 36. However, this is only number 31. Looking in the documentation, later versions moved this and moved it adjacent to the chassis. So where is it? Where is it? Okay. Let's see if we can gather this information here. Looking at the drawing up front, for the front, there's 2 capacitors, number 24 and 28, and those are located. One of them is vertically up and down in here, and the other one is horizontal here. So we found those. But number 36, that was supposed to be on the bottom, has been relocated here on the top, a long way from where it came from. And this is on the output circuit. This is up on the output tube number 43. So this is the output transformer, and so it's got the connections onto that capacitor. So as you can see down in here the chassis, and I'm trying to determine if this is actual rust or if this is some sort of discoloration. I'm beginning to think it's rust, and so it's going to be really difficult to clean this up the way it sits now. Another thing that we're looking at is, I don't know if you can see it or not, but try to get the light. I apologize, the cameraman is sick today, so this box right here has several capacitors in it. Let's see. That box has all these capacitors in it. So if we can get that box out, we can rebuild that and replace about 6 capacitors in that little box there. So that'll be important to get that out. So one of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to go after the speaker and get it out of the chassis. I've got to repair it. It'll give me a place to clean it up. If I leave it in place, I'm going to have to definitely cover it up, because you saw the hole, the thumb hole in it. And so I think we'll mark everything up, take the speaker out, then start attacking these capacitors and clean up. That's the game plan. So let's go for it. I'll show you something else that's fairly interesting. I'll get my fingers out of your way shortly. But these two block capacitors, I showed you, one is vertical and one is horizontal. Look what this is. I thought this was pretty nifty. This is a piece of cardboard stapled with a piece of metal in it. Now, what do you think that was for? Look at that. But let's think about this just a second. You've got these power resistors, and this tube right here is the 43, the output tube. So this is a heat shield, plain and simple, to protect the front and these components from the output tube. Pretty cool, huh? Okay, I've marked the wires going to the speaker. I've already removed that one, and so hopefully we can fish this thing out without tearing it up, if I've got it all disconnected. Let's see if we can fish this all out. I believe it'll have to come this way and up. I believe. So there is the speaker that's out. Gonna have to clean that up and see if we can repair that. Okay, while I was here, I went ahead and documented the coils of the speaker. The output transformer should have been 200 ohms according to the schematic, and it was 205. Through the documentation as far as updates, and the speaker field coil was upgraded to, or updated to 2600 ohms. Mine's reading 4500 ohms, so I don't know if that was another upgrade. I don't know. Okay, I loosened this choke just to swing it down. loosen the 2 screws. This dropped this block capacitor down. Remove this. This is an oscillator trimmer, and so I put it back. But in the meantime, I was able to pull this can out. Look at the discoloration and what the can looked like originally. So there's should be what, 6 wires or so going into, or maybe 5 wires going down into the bottom. That's going to be the challenge, but the colors look pretty decent, so maybe we're able to tag them off and pretty good, mark them, and then go back, build this can, be able to put them right back in there. Okay, in order to get more room to work in here, I'm going to take the antenna and band switch coil, or the band coil, out of here. The band switch, basically, if you'll see here, the switch is just an on and off switch. It switches the coil in and out for the short wave, which is just slightly above the broadcast band. So I'm going to take this out of the chassis to allow room. That'll give us a better room to test this, clean it up, and the more I get out from under here, the better off we'll be. This is I've been off 2 days with the crud. I'm feeling a little better tonight, and so I started back on this. But I took and drew me I'm sorry this is not to scale, but every which way that you want to document it, that'll give you some idea of how it goes, back together. That's whatever, and then I'm going to label these wires. I'll label these wires before I take it apart. Okay, I'm going to go after the filter capacitors. They haven't been changed. I think that one has been tacked in on top of this one, these two, but there's actually 2 in there. This one I believe is a 12 microfarad, and this is a double one. This is an 8 and a 3. They're all isolated from ground, so I'll have to keep those wires separate. I'm not able to tag the wires right there, but I believe that wire right there goes up into our capacitor can. So once I get the caps out, I should be able to label these wires. Okay, let's see what happened here. Took the filter caps out. That gave me more room. I took this oscillator trimmer, low frequency oscillator trimmer out. That block capacitor, I'll be taking that out soon. What I did is I took the can of the capacitors, disconnected it, traced every one of these wires to the proper location, and labeled this end of them and this end of them. What I plan on doing is going checking these values to see if they're any good, just for grins and giggles. But we'll be tearing into this and replacing that. But it's not a pretty sight, is it, guys? Okay, let's see if we can take this bypass capacitor can apart. I've got all these labeled. Look, I don't know if you can see this or not, but as I squeeze this, I'm getting some flex out of this. So I'm hoping that this, once we take this, that I can push this out. We'll just have to wait and see. Care must be taken on these tabs. Just getting this underneath. Ouch. do something with this. Keep these as straight as possible. Okay, let's push it and see if it'll come out. Okay, there's our little ground wire there. But that came out pretty easy, didn't it? Okay, let's see what's in here. Maybe Buzz left me $100 bill in here. What do you think? This is very well built. It can be repaired, that's a good thing. Ouch. I'll have to rebuild that with something else, with some cardboard or something. But there's the prize, the bottom of the Cracker Jack. Now what we'll end up doing is we will reuse this and build us a new set of capacitors according to this schematic right there. Let's see if I can get it. There we go. So we'll build a box set and put it back in there and run some wires, and then we will be able to go back into the radio and connect the wires to where I left the wires. Alright, remember I showed you this schematic I took and printed it out on a separate piece of paper. I changed the color codes for my wires simply because I didn't have any white, black trace, and I didn't have any white. So I decided to use yellow for white, and then the yellow black trace. The 0.2 microfarads, I made them 0.22. There was 2 of those. The 0.5, I made a 0.47. And then the 0.09s, I made 0.1s. And down here it's the 0.05, I made 0.047s. So you see how it's laid out. This 0.047 goes to ground, and then it's tied to the common to all of them. And then the common one comes out on the black. And then the green wire will go to point alpha, A, in the circuit, point B, C, D, and E. And I have those marked. I left the wires in place for those. The D and the E really doesn't matter if you get them crossed up because it's the same value. The same for the green and the yellow. It's the same value. It's the same capacitor, so it really doesn't matter. The only one you really have to worry about is this lead and the red lead, and getting these two on either one of these, and these two are either one of those. Let me show you how I made that. I took, you've seen me do this before. I took a perf board and cut it, and I mounted the capacitors and just made a little strain relief with the wires, made them long enough. This is the 0.047 that's going to solder to the can itself. And what I'll do is I'll take a piece of wire and I will heat shrink this, and then I will solder it to the can as I'm putting it down in there. I'm going to make a cardboard insert for this and then put it back in just like that. I'll show you when I get it done. Okay, I've soldered the lead to the capacitor to the can. got extra lead. It's all insulated. Now, let you know that I have gone back and double checked the capacitance of these with a meter. And actually, before I soldered it, the first dry run is I found one in the wrong place. So that's why you go back and check them. So I've already hot glued this down in the bottom just to hold it in, because it had, if you'll remember, the capacitors had some tar around it, so it kept it all in place. So I just hot glued it so it'd stay. Now, this is something that Buzz always did. He didn't always do it, but he did. I put a $2 bill in one once. He's looking for a $100 bill. But I'm doing this for Buzz. Buzz, if you're watching, we want you back on the air, buddy. Come on. We're waiting for you. Everybody's missing you. Everybody's wondering about you. And so I'm putting that in there for you, brother. All right. And so now we're going to stick this down in here. And we've got a little slot right there for our wire to come out. Somewhere thereabouts. And so we're going to put it right down in there. Thusly, bend these over like this. Now that is ready to rock and roll. All right, that's going to do it for this series, this part. Next time we'll get into these filter caps, rebuilding those, and also these Bakelite block capacitors. We're going to get into rebuilding those, taking those out. There's 5 of those. So that's going to do it for now. So from Larry, from the hills of Tennessee, thanks for watching.